Case 3, Fernando Estefan versus Immigration Judge. Fernando Estefan is a Cuban man who is seeking asylum because he was harassed and abused by a government official in Cuba for his sexual orientation. He will now plead his case to the immigration judge and will prove he deserves asylum.
Fernando Estefan, I see that you have fled from Cuba due to discriminatory acts against you by the government. Is this true?
Sí, señorita.
Well, let me inform you on how this court will rule your case. The Refugee Act of 1980 defines a refugee as any person unable or unwilling to return to his country of origin because of persecution or well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Fortunately, in your case, the U.S. government acknowledges homosexuals to be in this particular identified group. But since 1994, only 600 people have received asylums based on their sexual orientation. Therefore, your plea will need to explain your suffering and persecution in Cuba.
Gracias.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me begin by stating that being a gay man in Cuba is a struggle in itself, but fleeing to a different country is even more of a challenge. Since the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act of 1996 has been passed, it has not improved the needs of gay asylums. Instead, it has implemented harsh and unrealistic acts, which include the reforms of a one-year filing deadline and mandatory detention. When immigrants first come to the United States, their main concern is survival. When Mr. Estefan arrived to this country, he first had to find a way to eat and survive. Secondly, Mr. Estefan suffered trauma from his experiences in Cuba for being a gay man and is ignorant to the U.S. constitutional laws. He is deathly afraid of identifying himself as a gay man to his peers because of what he has experienced. From Cuba, he has brought the fear of government authorities, and he also lacks the skills and resources necessary to file an asylum claim. Mr. Estefan had been patiently waiting for his trial in a detention center for 6 months, where he was treated like an inmate, even though he has not committed a crime. Gay people are among the most vulnerable of detained individuals. It is unjust what our country continues to put Mr. Fernando Estefan under. He has already experienced enough, and to come to our country, a place of freedom and opportunity, and experience additional sufferings is a disgrace.
Attorney, may I mention that you left one major part of the act out? Immigration officers at ports of entry in the United States have granted unprecedented authority to deport individuals who arrive with false or null travel documents. Does Mr. Estefan have these required valid documents?
No, Your Honor, but
Mr. Estefan does not have any documents to prove that he's from Cuba. He is lucky he was not deported when he arrived. Asylum seekers among those most harshly impacted this process.
Your Honor, this requirement is simply unrealistic of my client. When Mr. Estefan fled Cuba, he did not have the opportunity to bring his traveling documents. Even so, after a brutal journey to the United States, the chances of him having documents are slim to none.
Does Mr. Estefan have the opportunity to obtain these documents from a family member in Cuba?
Unfortunately, Your Honor, my client no longer has a relationship or contact with his family members back in Cuba due to his sexual orientation.
So Mr. Estefan has no way of getting these proper documents, is that correct?
No, Your Honor. My client does not have his documents, but he still deserves asylum because fear of further persecution from Cuban government officials due to his sexual orientation.
Okay, well this is what I will do. President Bush has signed the USA Patriotic Act of 2001, which results in asylums to be under greater scrutiny. Therefore, I will need to reschedule this hearing in the future in order to conduct an extensive background check on Mr. Estefan. This case is dismissed.
Case 4, Andre versus Neighbors. This is a civil suit against Andre versus his neighbors. Andre is suing his neighbors for harassment because he believes that he is getting harassed because his current girlfriend is Latina.
So we are here today because Mr. Andre claims of discriminatory acts against him. Is this true?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm a social worker and dealing with a lot of people, helping a lot of people, specifically blacks and Latinos. A lovely lady here to my left, saw a spider. Everything was cool. My family loves her. Tell where I live at. My two neighbors.
Is ignoring her, or have acts been
There has been
against her?
some threats by Patrice and Susanna.
Now, do you not like her because of who she is physically, or because you have feelings for Andre?
We just don't get along.
Susanna, what's your opinion?
Ditto on that, like, ew. He can do so much better.
Double ill.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, do you discriminate against her?
No, really. I don't think.
Yes or no, please?
No.
If I can interject, Your Honor, I think, again, being as a prominent social worker such as myself in the area that I work in, it's through my clinical advance, thank you, sweetie, that I think that this is a racial issue, I believe. I'm a firm believer of the black and brown unity, and I'm simply just unifying that,
So, in the case I have that you have tried to kick out both of them just because he is dating a Latina, is that true?
I wouldn't say kick out. I highly suggested that they leave the neighborhood.
Because she is Latina?
Well, just because they're an interracial couple, like, I feel like they should date within their own race.
I find in favor of the prosecution because of discriminatory acts against them. Case dismissed.